Hello fellow gamers, how the devil are we? I'm not going to bore you with a great big preamble, let's just get straight to the point. This is a brand new co-op action RPG game that has just pretty much announced itself. It is from the studio Limitless Games. They are made by the developer Limitless Games. They are a brand new contender on the block, and this game looks interesting and potentially has a lot of fun. Again, to really iterate the point, this has only just really been announced. It is very early doors at the moment, but I will give you as much information as I can. I have gone through various betas, I've looked at pages, videos, and this is everything that I have found. It is bound to change, no doubt, and things will probably get better as it goes on, but here are all the details. So basically, this is a third-person co-op action RPG where the main emphasis is that you team up with your mates and you go kick the snot out of a bunch of bad guys, be it smaller enemies or big bosses. If you're looking for something to kind of relate it to in terms of like movement and how you use your abilities, the best example that I could come up with was Smite, which is basically, you know, that MOBA-esque game where you fight as a god versus other gods and there are creeps coming down the lane and the movement feels the same. It's kind of got that slightly ice skatery kind of feel to it, as if you're not actually touching the ground. But nonetheless, it's an incredibly popular game, and if you played that, then chances are that you'll feel right at home on this. So the premise is, you're in the multiverse and you are one of these incarnates, and basically these are powerful characters from various points in time and space, and they make up kind of like the go-getters who are going to deal with all the trouble that's being caused. In terms of grouping and players and characters and types, etc., it's not very groundbreaking. There are three types. There's the healer, there's a striker, and there's a protector. So it looks like it's gone for that typical holy trinity of tank, DPS, and healer, but that's fine. That's something that we're all familiar with, and therefore we're not going to have to kind of learn anything new and janky. Again, so these incarnates, they can learn a whole numerous amount of different abilities. It says that there are countless combination of abilities. I don't know if that means that classes can, you know, learn the abilities of other classes, and it's kind of you pick a mix and play that you want to. That would be very interesting, but I feel that it's going to be unlikely. There's just going to be a lot of different ways to play, I feel. And I wouldn't actually be very surprised if this just meant that there were different trees that you could go in and you get those different abilities, and they mean that these incarnates play in a different playstyle or whatever. On top of this, there have been promised as well a whole multitude of different weapons. Now, I looked through the screenshots to see actually what this means, and it is not that revolutionary once again. So you've got the three archetypes, they have different weapons, but there were just lots of different types. So if you look at, you know, Diablo, for example, you got weapons that you can use on your character, but they basically had different stats and meant that they, you know, powered up different abilities in different ways, etc. So I think that's what it means. I don't think it means that, you know, you can have like a grand slew of different weapons, sort of like God of War style. So in terms of actual game modes that you get to play with, there are currently 3 at the moment. There's a Colosseum, which is, I think, where you just fight a big boss in the middle. There's a dungeon, which I know nothing about, and there's also raids, which I don't know about. Now, one of the bragging points of this is that the bosses are randomly generated. Now, I don't know, again, if that means that the boss is random to whatever you're doing, or, you know, it's like a roguelike and it just spawns something different each time. I'm beginning to think that it might be the prior and not the latter, but have to wait and see, and if I find out more, I'll let you know. So, with the multiverse, means that you get to have lots of different biomes, and this is something kind of cool that they're kind of steering towards, because they've kind of said that there's a medieval fantasy kind of area, there's a Lovecraftian horror area, there's a sci-fi area, urban fantasy, and, you know, what else they decide to add. So quite the vast set of biomes there, which I thought was quite cool, and also gives them a lot of leverage. From what I've seen of the training areas, it actually reminded me of the old kind of MMO back in the day, and this is probably showing my age now, WildStar. So very bright colours, you know, abilities were very kind of almost like 3D cartoonish. So in terms of other little bragging points and what makes this different, etc., is that there are group hunts. So you kind of have a Monster Hunter kind of feel to it maybe, but they've also said that there is no tedious grind, so that you don't have to grind, you just are your character, I presume. I guess there's got to be some sort of progression, because if they just give you a character that does everything with all the loot or whatever, that's going to be really, really boring. So I'm guessing they're like, no, you have access to all your abilities, but the progression will probably be coming from, oh yeah, you got to kill this boss and you get X items. And I have found evidence to suggest this, but I'll talk about that in a minute. However, I will say I kind of do like this kind of steer sometimes towards games that do at least accept that we are kind of third and second generation gamers now, and that we have day jobs and we have, you know, limited hours in the day and kids and stuff, and sometimes having to spend hours grinding isn't, you know, all that fun. However, there's also a very strong argument to say that the grind and the journey to getting to, you know, the higher levels is actually the fun part of the game. And, you know, let's have a look at the most recent example, which is WoW 9.1. Everyone's got to the end and there's not really much to do. However, the journey and the story to get there was very, very good. I also have to now kick myself in the face a little bit, and I'm not going to edit out of the video, but basically there are levels apparently, but they don't count towards your usefulness. So I don't know what that means. The question, I guess, would argue, well, if they don't count towards anything, why do you have them? Maybe there are ability unlocks. I'm not sure. Okay, but apparently no, it's not your level, it's your gaming skills, teammates, and the choice of builds that you used to accept is how you win the game. Which, if you ask me, just describes 99% of all of these types of games. But anyway, there we go. That's that. So a further update as well, a little bit of extra information on the whole class system. So they say there's no class restrictions. So they, again, reiterating, there's loads of spells, there's loads of weapons, and there's like other perks that basically determine your playstyle. But basically, I think from what I'm reading is that means that like a healer doesn't necessarily have to stay with a staff. They could use a sword or they could use a gun, because things aren't adding up, because there are defined archetypes. So I imagine there are some sort of limitations there, but they're taken away kind of, you know, your conventional ones. So, you know, if you wanted to be a rogue with a shield, you know, fill your boots. Whether or not it's actually effective, well, you know, that's yet to be seen. And this kind of has a lot of resemblance to the Battlefield 5 system, which they're putting in place. So you have your archetypes, which have, you know, different abilities, but all the weapons are available on all the classes. So you can, you know, have your, you know, playstyle to a, you know, certain degree. And also the last bit is I want to talk about kind of like the roguelite system that looks to be implemented based on this whole multiverse system that they've put in. So yeah, it looks like there are random elements to kind of each of the zones that you go to, because the enemies are randomized, and also the boss mechanics as well are randomized. Again, how far of randomization this is, I'm not too sure. I don't think we're going to see, like, you know, just models that just do different animations and fire random spells. I think it's going to be a case of you maybe have phase 1, 2, and 3 that do, you know, different things, and in turn they actually do it in phase 3, 2, 1, and that some of them might be faster or slower, and, you know, he might throw 8 fireballs instead of 2, that kind of thing basically. Again, this is all speculation, and a lot of this is my own opinion just based on the evidence that I have gathered up. But anyway, that's the gameplay. Let's move on to some other bits and pieces that I found about the characters and stuff. So let's talk about the character and abilities and kind of damage and enemies and bits and pieces. So from what I've seen, I will reiterate this point. This game resembles very, very similarly to Smite. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because Smite is actually a very, very good game. But yeah, there are overlapping behavior, looks and feels, etc. So to control your character, you basically sat in third person. You've got 2 kind of resource pools. You've got health and you have mana. And at the bottom, there are a load of hotkeys which you use to summon your various abilities. So if you're a person who likes to feel that you are in control of your character, then this is going to be right up your street. And the character that I actually got to watch a kind of like demo of was basically a mage kind of healer-esque thing, beating down this big frost golem. I will mention, okay, let's talk about a little bit about the enemies. So you walk in, you fire some kind of like fireballs at the golem. Now there are two types of damage that the enemies were giving. One of them was unavoidable, and the tutorial stated this. It said you are about to get hit with this damage, and it's unavoidable, and basically it sat there pummeling you, and you know you had to soak it up. And I guess that's where kind of like the tank archetype would come in. And then there are the other kind of standard damage abilities of enemies, where it is that it said that, you know, it's going to be doing a channeling attack, and then it will put a marker on the floor, and your job would be basically to avoid the AoE damage from that area. In terms of actual movement of both enemy and player, at the moment there is a huge amount of skate, and when I say skate, it's kind of that feel that you're walking, but your character doesn't feel connected to the actual ground. So you're almost moving while your feet are firmly placed on the floor, so it looks like you're almost sliding a little bit. And no, it doesn't look very pretty, but things like this are usually tied up later on down the line, and, you know, movement given a more polished, kind of steady feel. Because, like, the example that they used, there was a big frost golem in the tutorial, and I'm sorry, but, like, if you've got this giant, huge kind of mecha golem thing moving along, you want to feel like it's kind of moving the earth as it goes, and, you know, you don't necessarily feel like this is, you know, the Flash moving at you. So I only have limited information on the healing class at the moment. However, I will give you all the details I do know. So your character abilities are divided into two. You have mouse skills, and you also have action bar skills. You also have a slot which you can put an outfit for on your character, and there also are emotes, and there's basically various stats that kind of showcase your current health, armor, evasion, all those kind of bog standard abilities. As well as the mouse and your kind of action bar skills, there's also what looks like to be an ultimate ability as well, or at least some sort of class specific, I don't know, buff or whatever. So on the screenshots of the healing character they saw, so there was, it does look like, you know, you've got that ability to use any weapon, because the primary key you had an ability called Revolver Shot, and there's also on the right click there was an ability called Soul Veil. You also had on the action bars an ability called Soul Strike, which looked like it was some sort of lightning that come down. Profane Gesture, I think it is. I couldn't quite read the text on the scroll bar. And also Soul Well and Slither, which looks like it's some sort of movement ability. I don't know what any of these abilities do. It is just on the screenshot. But what I can tell you from it is that it looks like there are healing, like your heal abilities, and also DPS. So kind of those two trees that we were talking about. And then it gives you, you know, that ability to kind of mix up the playstyles if that's the way you want to be. Very similar to kind of how a priest works in World of Warcraft at the moment. I will also just add in there are currently gems. I don't know what gems do, but if I was to make an educated guess, I would say that they are used to kind of upgrade your abilities and have some sort of stat boost associated with them. And then on the second set of screenshots I saw, it kind of confirmed exactly what I thought. So kind of the tree or your abilities were divided into 4 groups that I found. So there was healing abilities, there was damaging abilities, there's movement abilities, and there's also an ability slot called immunity. Not immunity, immunity, which I kind of, when looking at this, I now maybe think that this might be a spelling error. But yeah, there's an immunity section as well. So I'm not sure what it does. I guess it makes you immune to stuff. Now, to finish up things, let's just talk a little bit about kind of UI. So it looks like there's a central hub that you go to. I guess similar to how Destiny works. At least that's, you know, where I saw the character changes being made. And in terms of UI and extra bits and pieces, so there is a clan system, there's a friend list system, you can see your stats, there's an achievements section, there's an inventory system, which you can obviously see your inventory on, and there's also a sessions tab, which I don't know what it does, but yeah, that was also on the menu. And also there was a tab for Incarnate, but I think that just goes back to your main screen and shows your character where you change your outfits and bits and pieces. Anyway, woo-wee, that was quite the jibber jabber session there, but that is all the details I have on the game at the moment. I have gone through as much as I possibly can. It's everything from Steam, their website, and whatever screenshots and videos that I could dig up. I hope this is of use to you. I'm not going to make any kind of assumptions whether the game is good or bad at the moment, but there it is on the plate. You make the choice. It is going to be in early access in 2 days, so you can pick it up and give it a go. It's on the Steam page. It is currently only on PC as far as I'm aware, so Xbox and PS4 and Switch, you'll have to wait. But that's it for now. That's the chunky video of the day. Let me know what you think as usual, and yeah, everyone have a great day, and I'll be back with more news and game updates relatively soon.